You know, I never thought snipping a single wire could land me staring down a 7-year prison sentence. But that's exactly what happened when I crossed paths with Linda Grayson, the HOA queen of Willow Creek. One little discovery that she'd been siphoning my electricity for years turned my quiet life as a landlord into a full-blown neighborhood war, complete with police cruisers, planted drugs, and a gunshot that still makes my shoulder twinge when it rains. Looking back, standing there watching her empire crumble, I learned something. Sometimes the best way to fight a bully is to outsmart them with a little patience and a whole lot of wiring know-how. It all kicked off during a scorching Georgia summer, the kind where the air feels like a wet blanket and your AC is working overtime. I was combing through my rental property books when I noticed something weird. The power bill for one of my houses on Maple Lane had spiked. We're talking 400% higher than usual. At first, I figured it was a mistake. Maybe my tenant, Sheriff Mike Callahan, had gone wild with a new hot tub or something. I've got 5 rentals in Willow Creek, a fancy little gated community where folks like their lawns perfect and their neighbors predictable, so oddball expenses aren't unheard of. But when I called Mike, he was as baffled as I was, said he hadn't changed a thing, just him and his wife living their usual quiet life. That's when my old engineering days started whispering in the back of my mind. Before I became a real estate lawyer, I'd spent a summer interning at a utility company, geeking out over power grids and meters. Guess it was time to dust off that knowledge. I started poking around, checking the meter at odd hours, and noticed the usage went nuts every Wednesday night like clockwork. That just happened to be when Linda, the HOA president, threw her weekly community leader soirees, fancy parties for local bigwigs, complete with twinkling patio lights and a pool that glowed like a spaceship. Linda lived in the biggest house in Willow Creek, right behind my rental, and she'd been running the HOA like her personal kingdom for a decade. She was the type who would fine you for a mailbox leaning half an inch too far left, always quoting her precious rule book. But stealing electricity, that was a new low even for her. I called in a buddy Tom, a grid security expert from my internship days, and what he found blew my mind. Hidden in the meter box was a slick little smart breaker wired to shunt power straight to Linda's backyard, her pool, her lights, even a secret crypto mining rig in her basement. This wasn't some amateur hack. It was pro-level, designed to dodge detection unless you knew exactly what to look for. Tom whistled, "This is grand theft, Nate. 3 years of this. You're out at least 20 grand. 20 grand. That number hit like a punch. I spent days documenting everything, photos, videos, meter readings, the works my lawyer brain kicking into overdrive, building a case tight enough to hold up in court. I figured I'd confront Linda, show her the evidence, maybe settle it quietly. Big mistake. When I showed up at her mansion armed with my folder of proof, she didn't even blink. "Nate, you're mistaken," she said, her voice all syrupy sweet like she was scolding a kid. "That device, part of the community grid, you're out of your depth." I laid out the tech specs, mentioned grand theft charges, and that's when her mask slipped. She leaned in, close, eyes narrowing. "We go way back, don't we? Remember that little mix-up with the Carter case back when you were my intern? I fixed that for you. Be a shame if the Bar Association got wind of it." My stomach dropped. That mix-up was a dumb paperwork error from my intern days, nothing illegal, but enough to embarrass me if twisted the right way. This wasn't about electricity anymore, it was about power, the kind she'd been wielding over Willow Creek for years. I wasn't backing down. That night I flipped off the breaker, cut her free ride, and taped a legal notice to her door, citing Georgia's theft statutes and demanding restitution. I thought that'd be the end of it. 40 minutes later, blue lights flashed in my driveway. 2 cops, hands on holsters, marched up to my porch. "Mr. Carter, you're coming with us," the older one barked. No explanation, just a cold stare. At the station, they sat me in a grim little room, accusing me of slashing Linda's main power line, endangering her life because of some medical equipment she supposedly needed. It was a flat-out lie. I'd only touched the illegal breaker, but they weren't buying my story even when I showed them the videos on my phone. "Ms. Grayson's a pillar of this community," one sneered. "You've got a grudge, don't you?" HOA violations piling up, I could feel the walls closing in. Linda had spun a tale so tight even the cops were eating it up. The next day it got worse. An HOA letter slapped me with $600 daily fines for vandalizing community property. My tenants started getting notices about criminal activity at my properties. Then came the kicker, an email from the police saying Linda was pushing for vandalism charges up to 7 years in prison. My phone kept buzzing with neighbors' texts, but when I reached out, doors slammed shut. Linda's influence was like a fog over Willow Creek. Nobody wanted to cross her. I started doubting myself, wondering if fighting was worth risking my career, my reputation, everything. Maybe I should just pay her off. Let it go. Then a lifeline, a text from Sarah, the HOA secretary. I know what she's doing. Not just to you. Meet me at Brewhaven 7 p.m. Sarah was a quiet type, always in Linda's shadow, but that night over coffee, she spilled everything. It's not just electricity, she whispered, sliding me a USB drive. She's been selling fake eco-credits to residents thousands of dollars for nothing. People think they're buying green energy, but it's all a scam. Sarah was risking her job her whole life because Linda was about to fire her for asking too many questions. Her courage lit a fire in me. This wasn't just my fight anymore. Next, I met Emma, the HOA's young accountant, who showed me spreadsheets that didn't add up $200,000 in maintenance with no receipts, no contractors. Then there was Joe, a retired electrician who'd turned down Linda's offer to rig the breakers years ago. She found someone else, he growled. Paid him big to keep her crypto farm humming. Piece by piece, we were building a case, but Linda wasn't done. She called an emergency HOA meeting, turning the community center into her stage. Nate Carter's a menace, she declared, flashing doctored photos of damage I'd caused, pushing a vote to force me to sell my properties. When I tried to speak, the mic cut out. Technical issue. She smirked as the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Just when it felt hopeless, Joe stood up, his voice booming. I wired half this neighborhood and Nate's telling the truth. Linda's stealing power and I refuse to help her do it. The room froze. Linda's face went beet red as she scrambled to shut it down, but the seed was planted. A few neighbors gave me looks, not all hostile. The tide was turning. Then things got dangerous. My security cams caught Linda and a shaky cop officer, Derek Holt, sneaking into my house at 2 a.m., planting a bag of cocaine in my desk. I called Mike, who warned me a search warrant was coming, drug charges based on an anonymous tip. The next night, as I checked the wiring near Linda's place, Derek jumped out, gun drawn, screaming I was destroying evidence. My phone was streaming to Mike, but before I could talk him down, a shot rang out. Pain seared my shoulder and I hit the ground, vision blurring as Mike's voice shouted in the distance. Waking up in the hospital, bandaged but alive, I got the news Derek was in custody, spilling how Linda had pushed him, promising to clear his gambling debts. The shooting made headlines, and suddenly Willow Creek was listening. From my hospital bed, I sent Sarah and Emma to leak our evidence to the HOA board. I filed lawsuits, fraud, assault, extortion, you name it. Mike, wrestling with his own demons, confessed Linda had dirt on him, a fudged report from years back. I'm done hiding, he said, voice raw. Let's end this. The final showdown came at another HOA meeting packed with residents, reporters, even the Georgia Bar Association. Linda strutted in cool as ever, ready to bury me. I let her talk, let her spin her lies about my vendetta. Then I took the mic. I'm not here to fight, I said, catching her off guard. I'm here to save us money. I pitched a real energy-sharing plan, one that had cut bills by 20%, and watched the room lean in. Then I dropped the hammer photos of Linda's breakers, proof of her eco-credit scam bank records, showing her siphoning HOA funds. Sarah stood up, voice shaking. I paid $4,000 for those credits. Others chimed in, angry, betrayed. Linda tried to interrupt, but I kept going. Her house. It's in foreclosure. And guess what? I bought her mortgage yesterday. The crowd gasped. Linda went white. She'll pay rent to me now and to everyone she scammed. Mike stood up, voice steady despite his nerves. Linda blackmailed me, used a mistake from years ago. I was a coward, but I'm done. Joe waved a black book, Linda's ledger of secrets. Every dirty deal she's held over us, he said as Linda lunged, only to be cuffed by Mike. You're done, he said, reading her rights. Willow Creek changed overnight. I became HOA president, slashed fees by 25%, started an audit. Linda got 5 years, ordered to repay $350,000. Her house became a community hub with a small apartment for her post-release justice, not revenge. Derek got treatment. Mike got probation in that black book. We burned it, freeing everyone from her grip. Looking back, Linda thought she held all the cards, but she forgot one thing. The truth doesn't stay buried when people find their courage. My career, stronger than ever with speaking gigs and a new energy project. Mike and I became friends, bonded by our scars. I kept thinking one lie wouldn't hurt, he said one night over beers. Then I was trapped. His story's a reminder, integrity's a choice every day. One last twist, Sarah found a sketchy land deed in Linda's old files hinting the HOA's power grid might sit on city land. Forged, maybe. It's a fight for another day, but it's proof vigilance never stops. So what's your take? Ever dealt with an HOA tyrant or a neighborhood schemer? Drop it in the comments. Let's swap stories and figure out what justice really looks like. Hit that next video and let's keep digging into the madness.